Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Thanks Chandrika for the introduction. We're here today to talk a little bit about BlockBuilder, which is a content management system we've been building for about 4 years at Wayfair. We're really excited to talk about it as it's the first time we've presented it outside of Wayfair. It's built on top of server schema-driven UI on top of the Apollo Federated graph, and it's really been helping us speed up experimentation and optimizing our customer experiences. First off, I want to thank everybody at Wayfair. We have an incredibly talented team that's helped us with replatforming and build this system, put it together. I also want to thank Apollo, who's been close partners with us to scale our graph across the company and deal with a lot of scaling challenges along the way. I'm John Campbell. I lead a number of storefront platform teams that enable the rest of our organization to scale customer experiences. I'm here with Ryan.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan. I'm one of the engineers. I've been on the BlockBuilder team since the very early days, since it was just an idea.
Cool. Jumping into the presentation, quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about Wayfair. If you've been to the summit before, you've heard a lot about Wayfair. We're going to jump into an overview of schema-driven UI. We're going to play a demo video so you can see the BlockBuilder tool. Then I'm going to hand off to Ryan, who's going to do a great job making it easy to understand how we built BlockBuilder and how it works. And we'll close out with how it's leveraged, or how it's let us leverage experimentation for speed. Cool. To set the foundation, going to talk a little bit about Wayfair. Wayfair's mission is to be the destination for all things home. We continue to take market share in the home goods market and are striving to bring better experiences to our customers every day. We are essentially a large marketplace that connects over 20,000 suppliers to over 22 million customers. And we have a large engineering team that's unified by the Federated graph, over 1,000 developers, and our CMS serves over 600 commercial users that we enable through our larger platform stack to optimize for our customers. Our goal at the beginning of our replatforming journey was to build a scalable platform that can serve all of our storefronts. We have 6 storefronts that serve our customers in a number of countries, and we power differentiated customer experiences across web and app platforms. We have native iOS and Android apps, as well as desktop and mobile apps. We wanted to really build a flat platform that's flexible to adapt to our changing business needs, changing customer needs, and changing technology needs over time. And this is what we set out to build. So we knew we had a really big challenge ahead of us, and let's start talking about BlockBuilder. So before we started replatforming, I wanted to talk a little bit about where we came from. So Wayfair 4 years ago was a 15-year-old PHP monolith. If you've worked in old code bases before, you know that there's lots of tech debt. It becomes pretty expensive to make changes. We have blurred domains of different teams building things. Clients become out of sync. 1 month we might build something for iOS, run out of time to build it for Android. And clients start drifting. We have lots of nested if statements, and you can see experimentation logic over time gets left in code bases. And there's essentially, it's hard to keep track of what does what and what's going to break when you make a change. So we knew that server-driven UI was the path we wanted to take forward because we really wanted to keep our clients in sync, and we really wanted to minimize the amount of work it took to bring changes to production. When we started with server-driven UI, we found a lot of prior art, and I wanted to give a shout out to Spotify and Airbnb. They have some great talks y'all can look up if you haven't seen them, but they really validated our approach and helped us think about how we could break down pages and think about server-driven UI and think about simplifying our customer experiences. So one more slide on server-driven UI and really laying out some of the core concepts. If you're new, these are some of the key essentials that we broke down when we wanted to define our architecture. Our backends are grounded by schema, and BlockBuilder defines exactly what the client's going to render and works with the Federated graph to bring inline data to our clients. The Federated graph essentially handles all orchestration needs and provides a common interface for modeling our data. You all know about GraphQL here at the conference today. And we wanted to solve to keep our clients as simple as possible, as we talked about, in an idealized state that our clients are just dumb component and layout renderers, and we built a lot of reusable component libraries that let server-driven UI work its way through the client. At the end of the day, the key outcome for all of this is we're enabling our clients to take advantage of new capabilities with minimal change, enabling fast iteration across our teams. So what does this all look like at Wayfair? We have a notion of a block entity, which is essentially a specific entity that represents UI changes, and they encapsulate both stylistic configuration as well as whatever data is necessary to render components. Those are wrapped around GraphQL schema, and ultimately that's tied to a library of standardized reusable components on our client side. And when you throw in the API layer that's connected to the graph, you get a fully renderable API response that lets us render our beautiful customer experiences. And again, the key benefit to this is that our teams can get component updates for free. Anytime somebody builds anything within Wayfair, everybody else has the ability to adopt those changes and use them across the site. And as we go a little bit deeper in this conversation, you'll see some of the really cool reusable components we built and how it's let us accelerate development and move faster. Cool, so we're gonna jump into BlockBuilder, our system. And I started with a bunch of slides talking about BlockBuilder, but then we decided actually showing BlockBuilder. Thank you, Dan, for your great advice, by the way. Showing BlockBuilder would be more impactful. We also thought about doing a live demo, thought against it. So I'm gonna attempt to talk in sync to about a 5-minute video that we recorded to show off BlockBuilder. Cool, so jumping in, this is landing on our index page. I pre-filtered it to homepage experiences. And we're gonna quickly go into the Wayfair homepage experience. This is live. This is the live homepage that powers wayfair.com today. You can see there's a ton of blocks. This is a particularly interesting page because it's probably the most complex page from a configuration standpoint. There's a ton of things going on. You can see we have some targeted blocks for specific customer cohorts throughout our homepage. This lets us show certain things. You can also see on the right side, we have a bunch of targeted instances for completely different versions of the homepage for different customer types as well. So there's a lot of flexibility in our system. As we scroll down, you can see we have some live experiments running in front of our customers right now on the whole page level. So what does this version of homepage look like versus something else? There's a past experiment you can see there. You can also see we have scheduled versions into the future. These are a bunch of different versions that will go live automatically of the homepage, and our customers will see this exactly when it's ready. We use these a lot for promotions and sales and different holiday events. So now we're gonna jump in, we're gonna create a brand new experience page. We're gonna use our Flex landing page experience, which is our SEO landing page. It's a pretty safe place to play in production for the sake of this demo. I'm gonna set up a slug, which defines the URL for the page, give the page a title. Take a deep breath. Now we have a blank page to work with. Since we are talking a lot about AI this week, we're gonna use our BlockBuilder agent, also known as Blocky, which is essentially our implementation of Cursor for our CMS. I've taken a script that I'm gonna paste in here one of these seconds. There we go. And Blocky is actually gonna get to work building an entire landing page for us from scratch. If you can follow along with the script, it's gonna create a rich text block. It's gonna create a banner on the top of the page. It's gonna create an image card collection, as well as another rich text block on the page. This takes about 5 or 6 minutes right now. This is definitely in a beta version, so I'm gonna start speeding up the video about now. And you can start to see this page coming together in real time. Cool, now that it's done, we have a summary of everything that's built. You see we have the 4 new blocks I talked about. We also have a bunch of other blocks that are within those, and this is essentially built an entire tree to power the page. And we can close that out, and now we can look and see an inline preview. This is the entire page that's been built through composable blocks. And we're gonna go in and make a few edits to the page. So I'm gonna fix First thing is I'm going to fix a typo in the script. It's going to refresh the page in real time, and you can see instead of live, it says life. I'm going to maybe change some text alignment so things are left aligned to be consistent. I'm going to go into our collection grid display block, and I'm going to change it from 4 columns to 2 columns. You can see within the block we've defined all of our configuration options as well as the data that powers the block. So closing that out, I'm gonna do something that I think is really cool now. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time talking about. We're gonna link a core listing collection, which is essentially a product grid, put it on the page. And this is a block I created in advance that actually connects directly to our search service. And now we have a full list of product cards on the page. And jumping into this a little bit more, there's some cool things going on here. We've built a unified listing card at Wayfair. So it's a single product card that powers everywhere a product card shows up across all Wayfair pages, all Wayfair brands. And it's fully composable, so every piece of the product card can be configured. This is going into pricing configuration. If I was to remove the pricing block, pricing would disappear from the card. I can configure this, and we can reuse these product cards across our entire site. Similarly, we've defined a second interface, which I think I'm about to close out to on the demo. We defined a second interface for product collections. And so any service that can return product cards anywhere within our organization, all it needs to do is subscribe to that interface. I don't know what happened to my demo video. I must have messed up the pause somewhere. But based on that interface, anywhere you want to show search results on the page, anywhere you want to show, say, recommended products or even a search term or manually curated product collection, you can define that interface. It'll show right up in BlockBuilder and connect it with the product card. We essentially have reusable product cards that are scalable everywhere. If somebody wants to add a new type of product card or maybe add a new way for it displaying, everybody across the enterprise has access to that, utilizing our tool. So quick recap on BlockBuilder, some of our core capabilities. We'll talk about it a lot more when Ryan gets to his part of the presentation. It's fully self-service. Any engineer can define a new schema type, and based on that schema, it shows up in BlockBuilder and has full access to our federated data. You saw some of our preview tooling. We have a lot of other standard CMS capabilities, but we also have first-class integration with both our personalization platforms and our experimentation platforms. So as we move more and more towards ML, AI, automation, our CMS continues to evolve and our experiences continue to evolve naturally with a more data-oriented world. And that all works directly with our experimentation platform, which helps us move faster. Cool. I wanted to show a quick kind of high-level overview of our architecture. We're going to spend most of the time talking about how BlockBuilder itself works, but this is a great visual that lets you see how this works in practice. We have our data layer that brings all of our data through federation. We have our configuration layer, which BlockBuilder sits in and lets non-technical users configure pages. And then we have lots of reusable components and reusable layouts. Those coming together give you your fully rendered customer experiences you see. And with this architecture, if you want to introduce a new page type or experience type, it's just a matter of connecting these together and modeling it however you'd like to model it. Cool. So BlockBuilder, as I said, we've been working on it for about 4 years. Today, we have over 500 block types live in production. We are very performant. We've spent a lot of time optimizing the service. Our P99 is under 60 milliseconds. Our P50 is hovering around 5 milliseconds right now. We've scaled to over 2 billion requests hitting our subgraph a day. Gives you a sense of the scale of Wayfair and the scale of what we built. And as of last week, we have over 4,000 PRs of contributing block changes to our ecosystem from over 140 primarily front-end developers. Cool. Let's get to the fun part, talking about how BlockBuilder works. I'll hand it off to Ryan.
Thanks, John. All right. So John's part of the demo kind of catered to showing how we use AI tools to generate content. Mine's going to show a little bit more about how we also cater to humans still. So BlockBuilder is split into two halves. We have the content management system, that's essentially our CRUD layer, which handles the creating of content, reading of content, searching of content, all that fun stuff, the scheduling, all that fun capabilities that John showed off, and the content delivery layer. The content delivery layer is how we actually deliver those experiences to our customers to enable the e-commerce journey. Here's a high-level overview of the architecture. All the BlockBuilder pieces are in green. So in the middle, you can see we have Apollo Federation. We're using multiple contracts. We have the internal contract and the storefront contract. The storefront contract being what customers see, the internal one being for employees. We have a really great presentation on how we use contracts from last year's summit by Surrey. Check that out if you haven't seen it. But this kind of gives you a high-level overview of how BlockBuilder works. We have the BlockBuilder admin UI that connects to the content management system that is BlockBuilder. And the content management system is powered by introspection. To power that UI that John showed, we introspect the storefront schema to generate all those inputs. So here's kind of how it works at a high level. John talked about blocks and how blocks can be components or parts of components. So any kind of object entity that we define in the BlockBuilder storefront subgraph can be represented in the UI to be created, updated, and managed in our CMS. You can see all the scalar types here. We have strings, all the good stuff, enums, and we automatically generate that UI. And not only do we allow you to create individual components, but we allow you to define a whole page. So a whole page might look something like this, where you have a root entry point for querying your experience. We often call a page an experience because it's not always the whole page. And then you define sort of like a list of blocks that go on the page. Because if you think about some of those layouts John was showing, it's a single column of a lot of blocks stacked on top of each other. And we frequently use unions to define what types of blocks are available in each section. All right, so when you define a full experience, you get the UI that John showed, but you get a nice object list picker, you get search capabilities, all that good stuff. Automatically, there's no code to be written after the schema gets deployed. And we use directives quite a bit. For the admin UI, we have a lot of additional directives for creating advanced validation patterns or different UI optimizations, some of which I'll show a little bit later. All right, so that's the admin side, but what about the content delivery side? So the content delivery side, I mentioned that there's no code. When we create those storefront data types, we publish those to production, and we automatically get the UI, and the UI can automatically power the data storage that then gets resolved to deliver the experience to clients. So when our app starts up, we loop over all the object types in our schema, loop over all the fields, and we define a resolver for each one of those things. Most of them are shared. There's very few unique resolvers in our system. You can see this is kind of roughly how a scalar resolver works. Most of our resolvers get a map from the database via data loader, and then they just pull the value from the map based on the field name. The one unique thing here is, on string fields, we do handle different locales, so there's a little bit of extra magic just to get localization to work. This is an extremely simplified version, but you can kind of see how that works. All right, and then for objects, we handle them in a couple different ways. Objects can be stored as references, or they can be stored as an inline object. If they are stored as a reference, we do use the data loader pattern to just load them in batches. So it's very efficient, and we heavily use the data loader caching to get those performance numbers that John highlighted. The other thing that I think really kind of stands out with how we thought about BlockBuilder is we basically say any kind of entity you can define in GraphQL, we really need to support it. There are very few limitations to what BlockBuilder can do, and we do a couple different things to enable BlockBuilder to wrap other entities. Like in this example here, that we have a product card, which is a BlockBuilder entity, which defines blocks. So the product card can be very dynamic, and you can rearrange things and that sort of thing. But the product card has a data dependency, right? And the data dependency, BlockBuilder doesn't know all the product data, so we have to provide that entity stub. And I'll show a little bit later about how we can kind of wrap these things and manage that from the delivery side. So, in that previous example, you saw we had the product, but there was really no way for BlockBuilder to know what the value should be for that product key. So there's a few ways to do it. You could have it manually configurable in our UI, or oftentimes it's dynamically resolved via one of these directives. So here's a more complicated example where we have the product page. The product page takes a SKU as an argument, and we sort of pass that down through the children via a directive we introduced called inherit. So just like any kind of inheritance, right, where you can inherit an attribute from your parent, this works very similarly. The nice thing about this is now each component in our array can fetch only the data dependencies it needs. So in the case of Wayfair, I think we have 20 different subgraphs that supply product data. So you can imagine we really don't want to overfetch. We really don't want to hit 20 different subgraphs to supply a product page when maybe only half of those or fewer are actually needed, depending on the layout of the page. So here, this is how we kind of had those data fragments within each component. Each component declares its own dependencies. All right, now why did we do this? So we made everything dynamic so that we could iterate very quickly. Some of the iterations are just like developing new features, running experiments, and having a lot of fun doing that. So what we're going to do is, I didn't go with a live demo because I can't multitask. So I did pre-record this demo showing how we go from the idea of a component, maybe the front-end team brings us this component and wants to publish it in production. How do they go from 0 to experimenting to publishing it? All right, so BlockBuilder is schema first, right? We talked about how we very heavily rely on that storefront schema to introspect and generate the UI. Here's an example of the page that John was showing earlier, where it's a flex page. We have the entry point, which takes a slug. So to render a flex page, we have to get the slug from the browser or the app. We have paginated blocks. We do support pagination. And the cursor connection defines that same union we saw before. And here we're going to add a new union member. We're going to call this a big card carousel, because I couldn't think of a better name to call that component I showed on the previous screen. And we're going to enable things like themes. Each card in the big card carousel can have a heading, image, link, and a theme. And we add it to the union here. And we're going to add one additional thing here, which I kind of alluded to earlier, which is BlockBuilder embedded. This is just so that we can have a little bit of a nicer UI. So the deploy and publish, I'm going to skip the CI process. Bhavanand Rohit did a great presentation on how we enable mocking for developers so they don't have to wait for the schema to get to production. They can mock against it and test their components locally. So I'm going to kind of gloss over that, because also CI isn't very demo friendly. It's just kind of running all of our checks. And it should cut over here. So this part's sped up because it can be a little tedious for humans to create some of these components. So I didn't want to have you guys watching the clicking and the typing. John took the shortcut earlier and with the AI approach. So I wanted to show the more manual approach here. But I'm going to
how fast you work, though.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I'm creating those 4 cards. Based on that screen. Here's the 4th card, so this should be the last one, picking the images that go in there. And I'm going to publish this. Now, we aren't just going to publish this straight to production. The typical workflow is for us to create an experiment to determine, is this module valuable to us? So we have a separate tool right now to go in. This is called Gambit, where we actually define all of our experiments and manage them and report on them. So we're going to create a new experiment here. And here's where we set up our test. We have to define our test plan and our hypothesis, what kind of test it is, if it's a new feature or something else, just an optimization. So our test hypothesis is if we use this beautiful component, we will get more clicks. And it's a new feature launch, so we're creating this experiment. So here we're going to define the traffic splits and variants. So we're just going to create one additional variant, call it the experiment, and define like customer GUID as the splitting component. All right, and now we set the schedule. We're going to set the schedule to be today, so it'll go live today. To get this all to work, I did actually have to publish John's blocks in production, but they've since been removed. And we have our KPI reporting. So with each experiment, we are kind of expected to define what the primary KPI we're targeting is. I think this process will probably be a little bit more seamless in the future, but that's where we're at today. And now we go back to BlockBuilder and enable the experiment. All right, add the experiment. We do have to copy paste the ID right now, but soon we'll be able to create the experiment directly in BlockBuilder. And here at the bottom, we have the variation created for us. We can jump into the variation, add the new block that we created, and we're going to hoist it to the top. And now we update this block. Now this variant is created. And as soon as the test goes live, we have this. We have split traffic going from one experience on the left is for the control. The experience on the right is the experiment that we are wanting to test here. So that's the full end-to-end flow for how we go from an idea to writing the schema, deploying the change, creating and configuring, and then actually running the experiment. Thank you.
How long did that take you?
Sorry?
How long did that take you?
If I had used AI, it would have been much faster. But, but since I got the applause, John said he was going to shave his beard. I've worked with him for 10 years. Never seen his face shaved, so I don't really know what his face looks like. But thanks, John.
I'm sure I agreed to that one.
Well, that's the end-to-end flow, and John's going to close us out with some of the results we've gotten thus far.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. Cool. So we're going to do a quick closeout on what does this mean for Wayfair? What is Supercharge experimentation? Thanks again, Dan, for the great title. So these are a few changes we've highlighted just this cycle alone across our customer journeys. Non-technical users, again, can go in and optimize our customer experiences. And you can do it at really intricate levels on the page because we built reusable, configurable components. We can move things around. We can add and remove fields. And everything highlighted are actual tests that ran in this cycle. The big outcome with this, engineers are not part of the testing workflow anymore when we're actually moving things around. So now we can spend a lot more time building new things and actually solving hard problems instead of tweaking layouts and pixel pushing around the page. So what does this look like? This is essentially 2 years of experimentation velocity. BlockBuilder has gotten a lot of adoption across different pages as more and more teams have replatformed, and we've built better capabilities. Our testing velocity continues to rise, and our culture continues to center around these capabilities and essentially create a flywheel. Jumping into this slide, this ecosystem has unlocked a new flywheel for us. As we can ask and answer more questions without friction, that means we get more insights. We can create more delightful and optimized customer experiences. As this cycle continues to iterate and iterate, it helps our company grow, and it helps us make more money and keeps us all employed. So quick recap of this journey and what we talked about. On the top, we have Apollo, BlockBuilder, and Gambit, our experimentation system. This is all powered by schema-powered blocks. They're flexible. They're fully self-service. I don't think we reiterated it enough, but nobody has to ever talk to our content management team, fingers crossed, to create new content types, to launch new experiences. It's fully self-service. It's fully graph-first. All of our data and all of our components, they're federated. They're available everywhere for anybody to use, which means when you create a new content type, you also have access to our entire enterprise's set of data. The outcome of this is BlockBuilder enables codeless experimentation at scale. Cool. I wanted to close out on a few key learnings. Building something like this at a large company was not only hard from the technical perspective, but you also had to get everybody on the same page and aligned. Adoption and alignment is something that's been ongoing for us, and it's been critical from day one. Matt, who's my product partner here with me today, we probably spent about 2 years going through different organizations and saying, hey, this is what we're building. This is what it's going to get you. This is where we need your help. This is how we're going to make it happen. And we did that over and over and over again, and we got a lot of feedback. We changed capabilities in some places. We figured out what are the capabilities people want first. And ultimately, we did the same with our engineering community of, hey, this is how you need to build things now for this all to work. You all need to jump in and get on board. And I think even earlier this year, we thought we were done, but in a large organization, you continue to find new teams that haven't been paying attention for the past 4 years and maybe have been working on other hard problems. And so alignment is ongoing, adoption is ongoing. As a platform team, we're here to serve our customers, and our customers are our internal organizations. And so always remember that as a platform. Second, as we talked a lot about, we designed for flexibility. We wanted to build something that can adapt to different needs over time. We knew we weren't going to get everything right, and we wanted to build a system that was flexible. In many cases, we defined patterns, we defined best practices. In most cases, we got that right. But if you don't build enforcement, if you don't have governance, if you don't have the right linting, if you're not paying attention, somebody's going to figure out a new way to do things. And then when we say, hey, can we reuse that? Maybe, maybe not. So in some cases, we've had to go back and build things for better reuse. And so just a reminder, keep an eye on your best practices, figure out how you can automate them. Finally, if you're building a new platform, it will break. You are gonna get those middle of the night PagerDuty calls. And we really prioritize from day one setting aggressive SLOs. We're gonna have 4 nines in production, we're gonna be fast. And we weren't always there, but we built trust by promising that constantly. And I really think that's paid dividends in how we've been able to scale and ultimately be successful at Wayfair. Cool, I think that's it.
Awesome.
So now we'll open up for Q&A. If anybody, thank you. If anybody has any questions, feel free to step up to the mic.
There's some mic stands.
Oh, mics are here, mics are there.
Hey, that was a great presentation. Thank you for showcasing the BlockBuilder. My question is around, like, is that a single page query when you have different blocks? Is that each component has its own like query associated with it? How do you compose the request and response for the final page?
Yes, but I'll let Ryan answer that in more nuance.
Yeah, so we do have the ability for you to query for the full page at once. For obvious reasons, a lot of times people don't, right? Like a lot of times it's either paginated. So, you saw in the Flex page, we have cursor connections as, our kind of pagination method of choice. But with React server components, the client teams are experimenting with like streaming each component individually as well. So we do have the ability to refetch individual components on the page by by ID. So a lot of times the first query is just getting all those block IDs, and then the client figures out some way to orchestrate the call to be more efficient. We're playing around with some ideas around how to actually control that through BlockBuilder as well, but nothing there yet.
I had a follow-up question.
Sure.
On that as well. So are the client teams actually building, or who's building the reusable components piece? And is it available for all platforms, like native included?
Yeah, so right now there are 3 independent, core components teams is what we call them, and they kind of manage those reusable components. So yeah, it's not, we're not using something like React Native or anything right now. Yeah.
I meant like iOS, Android, like native.
Yes.
Are there components for that as well?
Yes, those are native, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We also felt it was important we continue to build app experiences optimized for what's best in that app platform. So because BlockBuilder is essentially a headless CMS, it's providing an API response. every client's at their own liberty to build the best representation of that experience. In some cases, you may have multiple ways of rendering a block depending on use cases. And so that flexibility is there in the platform.
So could you actually like deploy and see the native app changes as well at the same time when you were showing that demo?
We do have preview capabilities, but there is still some development to get those components to work on native. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and then if it is a brand new component or schema we're building on an app, that does generally require an app deployment process as well, and all the challenges that come with that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wanted to add one more thing to your first question, because I think it's an important point. At the end of the day, BlockBuilder is just another subgraph. So however you want to query against it and optimize for your own client experience, you can do anything you can do with any other entity type or any other subgraph.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. I'm Andrew from Bloomberg. And I have a question about the server-side rendering, because how do you manage which blocks of the page should be rendered on the server side? Because I haven't seen anything during your presentation. It is the first question. And the second one, it looks like production-ready headless CMS, like Contentful is, yeah? And do you have some plans to open source it in some way? Maybe in the future we will have a chance to take a look deeper.
Yeah, with server-side rendering, it's kind of up to the client at the moment. The client can, as I mentioned, they can query and just get a reference ID that they can, defer the query to the client-side render if they want, or they can just kind of optimistically fetch the whole block on the server and render it. So the client is very much in control of how they want to do that. We're still experimenting a lot with React Server components, and really excited to see the changes coming in Apollo Client v4 too. So we'll be playing a lot more with those in the future. As far as, it's pretty similar to Contentful. We actually used Contentful in the past at Wayfair as well. And we've kind of jokingly talked about open sourcing it, but who knows?
Thank you.
Stay tuned, you never know. And we did have an earlier slide about other CMSs at Wayfair, and we really felt building something in-house. One, we can fully leverage the graph and leverage all of our data. We also have first-class integrations with all of our other internal platforms. Makes doing stuff with personalization, with AI, with experimentation, et cetera, really, really easy because Wayfair has so many internal tools.
Uh-oh.
No, you're all good. You're all good. Hey, one thing. Have you noticed the cultural impact of reducing the cost of experimentation? Because when there's friction there, people like debate which one is better, but now you're like, just try it. Is that happening? Do you see that change? I mean, I know experimentation has been a big deal even before BlockBuilder at Wayfair, but have you noticed anything there?
Yeah, I think we're still in the early days of that, but we are seeing that flywheel starting to take off, and I think there's a lot of, in the past, there was actually a lot of workflows around running a test and a lot of things copy and pasting from spreadsheets and sort of a perceived complexity of how hard it is to make changes. And I think as more teams, particularly non-technical teams, get used to using BlockBuilder and used to using our new stack, they're seeing how easy it is and thus are motivated to try more things and run more experiences. And I think run more experiments. And I think in the past, we did a lot of, because it was so expensive to run a test, we'd do these like big bang tests, where like, what are the 10 things we can try at once to make sure it works? We didn't talk about it, but BlockBuilder is heavily nested, and that's by intention that you can reuse different parts of blocks, different parts of the experience, however you want to model it. You can actually run an experiment throughout that entire tree as well. So if you just want to move one thing around on a page and see how it works, you can run an experiment, or if you want to try a completely new page, or any variation between the two. And as Ryan alluded to, we still have a lot of work to do on making it really, truly frictionless to use BlockBuilder with our experimentation platform. As that gets better, we still expect to see a lot more benefits over time.
It's amazing. One follow-up, you mentioned how important it was to work across your organization to build support and then to demonstrate the proof points. How are the clients feeling? The client teams, no doubt, had to put a bunch of work into each of these to play back all these blocks. are they now seeing the lack of the code churn and then they're freeing them up to go do interesting stuff versus thousands of tests? Are you getting some positive feedback from those teams?
Yeah, so I think initially most engineers from day one kind of want to control their own destiny, and it's really hard to give up control and to establish that trust. But I think as we've seen success with our ecosystem and time has gone on, engineering teams actually see the benefits of having a very clear architecture where you're building more modular components and you're building reusable layouts, and you're seeing how you can leverage work that our teams are doing. And so over time, I think we've had a lot more success, and teams are, once you can convince an engineer that this is actually helping them, they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to want to use it, and they're going to become supporters of your platform as well. And we've definitely seen that, and we've seen that success. So we prioritize in every moment possible talking directly to the engineers and helping solve for their problems and figuring out what's missing that's going to make their lives easier. And that's really helped with adoption over time.
Thanks.
Hey, I have a question around the consumers, like the platforms, Android, iOS, or web. How are you managing consuming the schema? Are you doing code generation in the clients? And also, how are you managing the complexity of the schema? Because with all these nested capabilities or the blocks that you are adding, this adds complexity.
Sure.
And also, related to that, what about the payload size on these requests, which probably is bigger and will keep growing?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great points. Yeah, clients are mostly using code generation, code gen on web. I don't know what the native equivalent is, but they're using something there as well to generate those types. And then as far as payload size, payload size is definitely a problem. I think the biggest challenge is encouraging people to paginate. So one of the things that I would say maybe was a mistake is we support list fields. So in many scenarios, like the header is the first one that comes to mind, we do some things around the header to server-side render a lot of links for SEO reasons. So there's maybe 1,000 links in some cases that get SSR'd, which results in a very large payload. In hindsight, should we have supported list fields? Because it kind of leaves this possibility of having an unbounded list. We've had to build a lot of additional caching and even some very custom resolver logic to make sure those large payloads are optimized well. But I would say that's still somewhat of a problem where some teams, because it is self-service, they don't talk to us. Sometimes they will go in and create a new experience that has no pagination, even though we warn them. There's warnings along the process. Copilot will warn you, whatever. There's even lint rules and things like that. But sometimes those will get ignored, and then it can be a problem later.
We'll just take one final question.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out. We have Andrew and Bill here from our native platform teams that can help answer some of those questions too. So a bunch of people from Wayfair if you have questions later.
Yeah, hi, this is Arne from Delivery Hero in Berlin. I'm biased because I've seen your product already, so really, really good talk. I have a question on blocks have a lot of data dependencies. If one of these fail, how do you handle degradation of blocks? Do you skip them entirely, or is there some defined fallback state or degradation?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, for the most part, there's no fallback. There are fallbacks in certain scenarios, like if BlockBuilder fails, teams have sort of a fallback set of blocks that they use sometimes. But our SLA, we're expected to have 4 nines of availability or so. And then, if a data dependency fails, I would say that's still, an issue. We're kind of looking into the best ways to solve that. In some cases, the client may have something cached that they can use, but not always. So.
Thank you.
Maybe to add a little nuance to that, we are, again, schema first. So based on if things are required or optional, we do encourage our engineers, if there's data requirements that are not absolutely necessary to render the page, you can define them as nullable, and then clients can decide how they want to gracefully fail if that data doesn't come back. And so that's one of the approaches we use to deal with data issues.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. That was truly, truly.